Hey guys, Daddy-O here from Dad Adventure TV. I'm out on the day after Thanksgiving, early morning, for a quick ride. My Bronson V3 is down because it has no front brake. So I took my Bronson V2 out, and as an owner of both, I thought I would give a quick description of the differences in how the suspension performs between the V2 and the V3. Many riders are probably actually familiar with the V2 version of the version 2 Bronson. That was like 2016 to 2019, I believe. So if you know how that rides, you can get a good comparison to the V3, hopefully with my description here. Before that, though, let me show you my V2 here, and I'll go over a couple differences between it and my V3. All right, so here's the V2 Bronson. A couple differences between it and my V3. This has first of all, it's a 2017, by the way, model year. It's aluminum. My other one is a carbon C. The drivetrain on here is a GX, but it's not an Eagle. The largest cog is a 42 tooth cog. In the rear, I think it has a 32 up front, although I'm not 100% sure. I've never really bothered to count. It has the Fox Monarch. I believe it's the RT. Let's see if we can look. I'm pretty sure it's the RT. But anyway, it has a 2-position switch. It has fully open and then like partial lockout. It has the the RockShox Pike up front. And obviously those are some differences. My other Bronson has the 12-speed NX, so it has the NX Eagle with the 50 tooth. Has a Yari Pike up front. And of course the head tube angles on the bikes are slightly different. I believe the Bronson V2 is 66.5. My V3 is a 65.1 as I run it in the low setting, and my shock has no lockout switch. And of course the shock is mounted down here from here to here, kind of across there, and it's driven by the lower link, and your rear triangle is now concentric. So see, on this side there's no, I don't know what you call that one, but there's no connector this way. On the V3 it looks just like this, with a full triangle on both sides, so it makes the back end a little stiffer. But with those differences, and I have 2.3s on here, I have 2.6s on my V3, but they're both Maxxis Minion DHF front, DHR2 rear. So the differences, though, in the suspension feel, and I'm going to talk solely about the suspension feel here, and when climbing is really what I'm talking about mostly here, is that the V3 without a lockout switch basically feels like the V2 with the lockout switch in the pedal mode. So when I switch this to the pedal mode, it feels on the top end of the stroke very similar to the V3 fully open. So in other words, the V3 naturally stays higher in its stroke than the V2. When I try to climb or really pedal for any distance on the V2, and I do run mine with a little bit more sag. I run about 30-35% sag, but it definitely goes into the middle of its travel more. So you get a little more movement off the top, and it goes a little down into that center of the travel. Whereas the V3 kind of stays more high in its travel. If you've ever ridden a DW Link bike, like I demoed a bunch of pivots last year, the new V3 to me feels very similar especially in the top part of the stroke. But what it does is that's different from the V2 is that in the V2 I find when I'm in trail mode, though, I do definitely lose a little bit of grip when the climbing gets technical. So if it's a lot of repeated, very close together repeated routes, rocks, that sort of thing, nothing huge, but the small sort of stuff, kind of junk like that, but like one followed by another, kind of rocks like that on the trail. The V2 will, because I have it set in that sort of semi-lockout position, I find that it doesn't track the ground quite as well over those really technical climbs. The V3, however, manages to give me more traction even when the climbs become more technical like that. So I do think that the V3 suspension was definitely an upgrade in the climbing department. It basically eliminates, in my mind, the need for that lockout switch. It allows the bike to have the same efficiency in regular pedaling as the V2 in lockout, but to have better traction when the climbing gets technical, because it's not locked out. It's actually just in its fully open mode. And then down, definitely the V3, and I'm talking about the down now of the V2 in fully open compared to the V3 in fully open. The V3 definitely is smoother and more plush. I mean, the V2 is still a great bike, and I still really enjoy it. But the V3 is definitely sort of a step ahead in the development of the suspension feel when you're bombing down over gnarly terrain. It's smooth like butter, man. It's just sweet. So, at any rate, that's about it. I still think the V2 is a great trail bike. It feels to me more like the V2 is sort of a long-legged trail bike, whereas the V3 sort of has a foot in like long-legged trail bike territory and a foot into enduro territory. It's kind of like right on the fence. Actually, my local trails here, this V2 is actually fine. It's pretty cool. And if this is mostly what I was doing, actually the V2 would be a nice machine. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it as an owner of a V2 and a V3, having just ridden the V3 a bunch and now getting out on this V2 today. Was definitely a noticeable difference, so I thought I'd do a quick vid for y'all. So if anybody is thinking of the new Bronson V3 or thinking of the V2 or maybe thinking of one of the both or not sure which one to get, hopefully this will help you somewhat in deciding. Thanks guys, see you on the trail.